In this Solasta Crown of the Magister video, we're going to be talking about races, classes, subclasses, and feats. Basically things you can do to customize your character in this game compared to Baldur's Gate 3. So if you want to know just exactly what classes and races you can play, what their subclasses are, and what feats you can take at level 4, watch on to find out. Note that Solasta Crown of the Magister has a limited license for this game, so they cannot copy the player's handbook in some ways. So the things in this game are going to be slightly different, and you'll notice a lot of classes or races that have different names but are similar to ones you would find in the player's handbook. First up is Hill Dwarf. This subrace has pretty much the same bonuses as Ghoul Dwarf in 5e. It's missing the armor proficiencies, but everything else about it is pretty much the same. You'll notice there's also languages in this game because there are texts and languages that you need languages to decipher. So it has Common and Dwarvish. This is a good build for, or a good race for probably a Cleric class because of the increase to Wisdom and Constitution. So if you want to play a Cleric, this is probably a good choice for you. Next up, you have Snow Dwarf. Snow Dwarfs gain poison resistance as well, similar proficiencies. They also gain an increase to Dexterity instead of Wisdom, and they have proficiency with the heavy crossbow. And they have +2 to Constitution saving throws. So this is probably going to be good for a ranged character. So if you want to play a Ranger or you want to play a Rogue, this is probably what you're going to go with on this build. That proficiency to heavy crossbow means they can do some of the most damage in the game at ranged. So that's a very, very good choice. Half-Elf is also in the game. There are not sub-races for this like in BG3. You're going to get +2 to Charisma and +2 to any other scores by 1, just like you did in BG3. You get to pick any 2 skills you want. They have Dark Vision, Fey Ancestry. These are pretty standard, and they speak languages Common, Elvish, and one other of your choice. So this is going to be good, probably. There's no Warlock in this game in Solasta, so you're probably going to choose maybe a Paladin with this. Paladins also use Charisma. Paladin's not a bad choice. Or if you just want a very charismatic character, you can pretty much do anything with this you want because of the increase to the other skills to the 2 points. You can place them however you want, making it very versatile for a different number of classes. Humans, just like BG3, have +1 to all ability scores, but they also gain a language of their choice besides Common, so they're going to gain that in this game. And they're just pretty much good all around for anything. They don't excel at anything. It doesn't seem like they have a variant in the game. I have not tested this out leveling up to see if they get an extra feat or anything like that, but you certainly don't get one at character creation. So this is probably something that, if you don't know what the hell you're doing, you might want to play this, but otherwise it's not very specialized. High Elves have also made it into the game. They have proficient with longsword, shortbow, and longbow, just like Baldur's Gate 3. Pretty much everything is the same as it is there. +1 intelligence, different languages you can speak, Common, Elvish, and one of your choice. They gain a cantrip. They have Dark Vision, Fey Ancestry. These things are all pretty much the same. There is a difference here, which is Trance, which allows them to basically be rested with 4 hours of meditation, which is great because resting is a lot more difficult to do in this game. So High Elves are going to be good for probably a Wizard because of the increase to Intelligence and Dexterity, or maybe a Spellblade, which is basically the equivalent of an Eldritch Knight in this game. So if you're going to play like a Warrior that also casts spells, they're not a bad choice. Sylvan Elf is the other subrace of Elf in this game, and they're kind of like the Wood Elf from 5th edition D&D. They have the +1 to Wisdom. They're proficient with Longbow, Shortbow, Longsword, Shortsword, Survival, and Athletics, which is a little bit different. They have common languages of Elvish, Dwarvish, Halfling, and Common, which is good. And they basically are the same in pretty much every other way, but they do, again, have the 4 hours of meditation are sufficient for rest, which is nice. So if you're planning on playing a Ranger or maybe a Cleric, this would be a good choice for you. First up on the subraces for Halflings is Marsh Halfling. They have +2 Dexterity, advantage on saving throws against being frightened. They also have Lucky, which means they get to re-roll if they ever roll a 1, which is fantastic, just like BG3. They can move through spaces that only creatures of their size could, which I don't know how useful this is. I haven't seen areas where they might be able to move through, but I imagine that you're going to be able to use this a few times, at least in early access. They also gain +1 Constitution, can speak Common and Halfling. And I'm not exactly sure what the swamp thing there means. I think it means that they can move through these areas more easily, but I'm not entirely certain. For the Island Halfling, you gain the same things there under the Halfling part, but as far as Island Halfling goes, you gain +1 Charisma, so they're going to be a little bit more persuasive. They also gain more languages, Common, Halfling, and one of your choice. And they gain advantage on Dexterity checks for Acrobatics. So if you're going to make a Paladin, this might not be a bad choice for the extra Charisma, or maybe if you just want to make a character that has very good dialogue options. Moving along to the classes, let's start with Cleric, since you get to choose your subclass during character creation here. Clerics basically have the same thing they did in Baldur's Gate 3, so if you're familiar with it there, you're going to be familiar with it here. They have saving throw proficiencies with Wisdom and Charisma, light armor, medium armor, shield proficiencies, simple weapons. They get to choose 2 skills from History, Insight, Medicine, and Persuasion, or Religion. They can cast spells from the Cleric list. They can also cast spells as a ritual if they've prepared them, and they have the Divine Domains, which is basically their deity and spells that are part of that. And they can also scribe scrolls. So the first thing that's going to happen after you choose Cleric is you're going to choose your deity. There are 4 deities to choose from. And inside each deity, there are subclasses, or basically your domains that you're going to choose that represent that deity. A rune has 4 to choose from: Elemental Fire, Elemental Ice, Elemental Lightning, and Sun. Really, the only difference between Elemental Ice, Elemental Fire, and Elemental Lightning are the resistances. They each get a resistance to that damage type is cut in half, basically. And they also get a bonus cantrip, so Ray of Frost for Ice, Firebolt for Fire, and Shocking Grasp for Lightning. Also, at higher levels, you're going to get a special Channel Divinity ability that's going to be focused around your element. For instance, Lightning has Lightning Blade that buffs its weapon with lightning damage. And also, you're going to gain immunity to that damage type at level 6. So if you're element of ice, you're going to gain immunity to ice or frost damage in the game, so that will no longer be able to harm you. And in fact, it actually will heal you instead. If you choose the Sun domain, it's very, very similar to the Light domain in Baldur's Gate 3, so if you're familiar with that, you should be somewhat familiar with this here. You're going to gain spells that, basically are focused around fire. You're going to gain Burning Hands, Fairy Fire, Scorching Ray, Dark Vision, Daylight, Hypnotic Pattern. These are at different levels. You're going to gain the bonus cantrip of Light, and your Sacred Flame cantrip will actually make it so that your target has disadvantage on the saving throw of it, so that it's much more likely to connect, which is fantastic. At level 2, you're going to gain your Channel Divinity, which does a giant AoE of radiant damage around you, just like it did in Baldur's Gate 3. So if you're familiar with that, you're going to know exactly what you're going to do for this. And at level 6, you're going to gain a different Channel Divinity spell that casts light everywhere and removes darkness from the area, which is great, and also be able to heal another ally and remove a condition. One thing I forgot to mention about a rune and all the Cleric deities is that they have an alignment. A rune is neutral, so if you're playing a subclass or domain under a rune, you're going to be a neutral Cleric is going to be your alignment. Moving along to Einar, the alignment here is lawful, good, and the divine domains or subclasses under there are battle and law. Battle is going to give you a list of certain spells from the wizard spell line. It's going to give you Magic Missile and Shield of Faith at level 1, Acid Arrow, Flaming Sphere at level 3, and Fireball and Haste at level 5, which is awesome. It's also going to give you proficiency with martial weapons, so if you like to use martial weapons on your Cleric, this is a great way to pick some of that up. And it's also going to give you Divine Fortitude, which allows you to gain HP per Cleric level once per long rest. At level 2, you're going to gain Decisive Strike, which will be your Channel Divinity ability, which adds 1d6 to your damage and stuns your target unless they save, and is going to increase by 1d6 every 3 levels above level 2. At level 6, you're going to gain Herald of Battle, and allies and adjacent cells are going to gain +1 on their attack rolls, damage rolls, armor class, and saving throws, which is phenomenal. Under the Law domain, at level 1, you're going to gain Heroism and Shield. Level 3, you're going to gain Branding, Smite, and Hold Person. And level 5, you're going to gain Counterspell and Lightning Bolt. So a different set of spells there. You're also going to become proficient in Intimidation and gain advantage on Intimidation checks. So if you're trying to intimidate people in dialogue options, this is a really good choice here. They also gain advantage rolls on being resisted from being shoved or moved by magical means. So this means you're not going to be able to be moved very easily at all. At level 2, you're going to gain 2 different Channel Divinities. Holy Retribution is going to allow you to use your reaction to make a melee attack against a target for a lot of psychic damage. And Force of Law is going to allow you to make it so that the saving throw of the person you're targeting with an attack spell has disadvantage, so they're much, much less likely to be able to save against your spell. At level 6, you're going to gain Word of Law, and this is going to allow you to break the spellcasting concentration of an enemy. So let's say an enemy uses Bless on all their guys or puts Bane on you. You're going to be able to use this to just absolutely wipe out that effect instantly. The Moraic Deity has Neutral Good and has the Life and Oblivion domains on them, so if you've played a Life Cleric before, then you should have some idea how this is going to go. Life Clerics gain Bless and Cure Wounds at level 1 as part of their domain spells, and Lesser Restoration and Spiritual Weapon at level 3, as well as Revivify and Mass Healing Word at level 5. And they also gain bonus proficiency with Heavy Armor, so if you want to play a Heavy Armor Cleric, this is a good choice. And also, whenever they cast a healing spell, the target gains an additional HP equal to 2 times the spell level. At level 2, they're going to gain their Channel Divinity, which allows them to restore health to everyone around them up to half their maximum hit points. And at level 6, they're going to gain Blessed Healer, which allows them to heal themselves whenever they cast a healing spell. Oblivion Domain Clerics are going to gain Sleep and Inflict Wounds at level 1, as well as Blindness and Random Enfeelment at level 3, and Vampiric Touch and Fear at level 5. They also gain the Gatekeeper ability, which means that as long as they're conscious, everyone in your party that's within 6 cells of you has advantage on death saving throws, which can help keep them alive, and they gain the bonus cantrip Chill Touch. At level 2, they're going to gain their Channel Divinity ability, which allows them to cause 1d8 necrotic damage and poison all enemies within 6 cells around them if they fail a Wisdom saving throw. Additionally, if you have an Oblivion Cleric in your party while you're traveling on the world map, the chance of being surprised or attacked is drastically reduced. And at level 6, they gain the Strike Oblivion ability, which allows them to add 1d6 necrotic damage to the first attack they do every turn, which is quite powerful. The Apocry domain is a lawful neutral domain, and under it you gain law and insight. We've already covered law before, so it's got the same exact things here. It's just able to pick it under 2 different deities. The insight domain gives you detect evil and good and identify at level 1, find traps and see invisibility at level 3, and slow and remove curse at level 5. And it also gives you advantage on ability checks using Arcana, History, and Nature, which is excellent. Additionally, anytime there is a dialogue where there are choices that use ability checks, you're going to get to see what the odds are if those ability checks use Persuasion, Deception, or Intimidation to see what the likelihood is that you're going to pass those checks. At level 2, they gain their Channel Divinity ability, and this allows them to impose disadvantage on the first attack made against them every round for 1 minute. And at level 6, they gain Divine Eye, which gives them advantage on Detect Traps, Hidden Doors, and Objects, which gives them advantage on a lot of ability checks. Moving along to Fighter, they have saving throw proficiencies in Strength, Constitution, light armor, medium armor, heavy armor, and shield proficiencies, as well as simple and martial weapons. And they get to choose 2 skills, Acrobatics, Animal Handling, History, Insight, Intimidation, Perception, Survival. So they get to choose 2 skills from that pool. And they also get to choose their fighting style or what they specialize in. This is like archery or defense or 2-weapon fighting, these sort of things. And they gain Second Wind once per rest, which allows them to heal for 1d10 plus their level. At level 3, fighters will get to choose their subclass from Champion, Mountaineer, or Spellblade. Champions increase their critical hit chance by making it so that if you roll a 19 or a 20, you do a crit instead of just 20. Mountaineers give you advantage when you do a shove as long as you have a shield equipped, and give you an additional 2 armor class when you have a shield equipped and one side of you is touching the wall. Spellblades operate much the way Eldritch Knights would, and they give you the ability to cast wizard spells and cantrips, as well as giving you magic weapon, which means your weapon attacks also count as magical against creatures that are resistant or immune to non-magical attacks. Moving along to Paladin. Paladins gain saving throw proficiencies in Wisdom and Charisma, as well as light armor, medium armor, heavy armor, and shield, and simple weapons and martial weapons, and they get to choose 2 skills from Athletics, Insight, Intimidation, Medicine, Persuasion, or Religion. They also have the Divine Sensibility, revealing Celestials, Fiends, and Undead, as well as a healing pool that they can use the ability Lay on Hands to draw from in order to heal a target. They can also use points from their healing pool to neutralize poison or cure disease. When they reach level 3, they'll get to choose one of their sacred oaths or their subclasses, and the oaths they can pick from are Oath of Devotion, Oath of the Motherland, and Oath of Turamar. Oath of Devotion paladins gain Shield, Protect versus Evil and Good at level 3, and at level 5 they gain Lesser Restoration and Aid, and also Dispel Magic and Revivify. They also gain their Channel Divinity, which is Sacred Weapon, which allows them to use their Charisma modifier to add to their hit chance for 1 minute while they're attacking, and also make their weapon emit bright light over 4 cells and dim light over 4 more cells, making it good in dark places, and it also counts as magical. They also gain another Channel Divinity ability, which turns the Unholy. This ability forces fiends and undead within 6 cells that you can see to flee unless they make a successful Wisdom saving throw. Oath of the Motherland clerics gain Bane and Burning Hands at level 3, as well as Branding Smite, Scorching Ray, Fireball, and Dispel Magic at level 5. They also gain 2 Channel Divinities. The first is Fiery Wrath, which hits one target creature within 12 cells, dealing 2d6 plus Paladin level and fire damage and setting it on fire. And if it doesn't make a DC 10 dexterity check to put it out, it will continue to sustain 1d6 more in fire damage per turn. The other one is called Fiery Presence, which blinds all opponents within 12 cells if they fail a dexterity save. And creatures that have dark vision or better actually gain disadvantage, and this blindness lasts 1d4 turns. So the better the vision of the creature, the more it's going to be affected by this ability. Oath of Turamar paladins gain a bonus language, so they're going to be able to speak the Tamarian language, and they also gain the spells Sleep and Shield at level 3, Hold Person Blindness at level 5, and Daylight and Slow also at level 5. They have 2 Channel Divinity abilities. The first is Golden Speech, which gives them advantage on Persuasion and Intimidation checks for 1 hour. The other one allows them to deal an additional 1d8 radiant damage on attacks which hit opponents that have either natural shapeshifting or dark vision, and actually does 2d8 if they have both, and this effect lasts 10 minutes. Moving along to Ranger. Rangers have saving throw proficiencies in Strength and Dexterity, as well as light, medium, armor, and shield proficiencies, simple weapon, and martial weapon proficiencies, and they get to choose 3 skills from Animal Handling, Athletics, Insight, Investigation, Nature, Perception, Survival, and Stealth. They also get to choose a favorite enemy, and this type of enemy they're going to gain advantage on when they're attacking, and they also gain Natural Explorer, which allows them to traverse better in areas of the specified terrain. This is a bit different than BG3. These were changed in BG3 to be a bit more general in what they do, and are not quite the same here at all. When Rangers get to level 3, they get to choose their subclass from Hunter, Marksman, and Shadow Tamer. If they choose the Hunter subclass, they're going to get Hunter's Prey, and they're going to get to choose one of 3 passives, which are the same 3 passives that are in Baldur's Gate 3, Colossus Slayer, Giant Killer, or Hordebreaker. I have not tested these to see if they are exactly the same or looked over them to see if they operate exactly the same way, though they are named identically. If they choose the Marksman subclass, they're going to gain an additional proficiency with either the Herbalism or the Poisoner's Kit, and they're going to gain reaction shot, which essentially once per round allows them to return fire if an enemy should attack them with a ranged weapon or spell from at least 2 cells away. The Shadow Tamer subclass is going to gain advantage on dexterity saving throws in dim light or darkness so they can take advantage of dark places, and they're also going to add their proficiency bonuses to hit and damage when attacking creatures with sensitivity to light or hypersensitivity to light. There are a lot of dark places in the game, so this is absolutely outstanding. Moving along to rogues, they gain saving throw proficiencies and dexterity intelligence. They gain light armor proficiency, simple weapons, long swords, rapiers, short swords, thieves' tools as well, and they get to pick 4 skills from acrobatics, athletics, deception, insight, intimidation, investigation, perception, performance, persuasion, sleight of hand, and stealth, so they very much have their pick of skills. They also get to select 2 skills they're proficient in or tools to double their proficiency bonus, so if they wanted to do this with thieves' tools, for instance, or maybe persuasion, they're going to double their bonus there. Sneak attack is the prime method that rogues deal extra damage, and it gives you 1d6 extra damage if you hit a creature while you have advantage using a finesse or ranged weapon once per turn, but you don't need to have advantage if an ally is next to the target. This damage will increase by an extra 1d6 every 2 levels. At level 3, rogues are going to choose from their subclasses of Thief, Darkweaver, or Shadowcaster. Thieves gain the Fast Hands and Second Story Work, though these operate much differently than they do in Baldur's Gate 3. Fast Hands allows them to use an object while in combat by using their Cunning action. Second Story Work allows them to climb without using as much movement. You climb a lot while in combat because you kind of do it automatically, and it allows them to jump further distances as well, so if they need to get across bigger gaps, this is really good. The Darkweaver subclass gives them proficiency with Poisoner's Kit, and it allows them to climb for no extra movement cost at all, so now it's not going to cost you any extra movement to climb. It's going to be treated the same as moving. And when you hit an enemy on lower ground with a ranged weapon, you're going to add your proficiency as bonus to damage. So this class very much, or subclass, is about getting up high and doing damage from up there. The Shadowcaster subclass operates much like the Arcane Trickster. It allows them to cast select wizard spells and cantrips, and also gives them Shadow Dodge as a bonus action. It allows them to teleport to a cell you can see within 5 cells, which recharges after rest, so once per rest. So that's good for getting into a backstab position rather easily. And lastly, we come to wizards. They have intelligence and wisdom saving throw proficiencies, as well as proficiencies in dagger, dart, and quarterstaff, no armor proficiencies. And they get to choose 2 skills from Arcana, History, Insight, Investigation, Medicine, and Religion. They can, of course, cast wizard spells, and they can cast spells as a ritual if it has the ritual tag and they have it in their spellbook without preparing it. They can also scribe magic scrolls and use enchanting equipment. At level 3, they're going to get to pick one of 3 subclasses, which are Green Mage, Lore Master, and Shock Arcanist. Green Mages gain green magic, which adds a bunch of spells to their spell list that aren't normally considered wizard spells, such as Fairy Fire, Hunter's Mark, Good Berry, Detect Poison and Disease, Longstrider, Barkskin, Pass Without Trace, Lesser Restoration, Find Traps, Protection from Poison, Create Food, and Daylight. They also gain Warden of Frost, which gives them proficiency with light armor, and they also gain proficiency in shortbow and the fighting style archery, which gives them +2 when attacking with a ranged weapon. They also gain the same advantages as rangers when in forest environment. That makes this class very good for sort of a hybrid playstyle between a ranged bow user and ranged caster. If you want to be able to do a little bit of both, this is a very good one to have. The Lore Master gives you Keen Mind, which gives you advantage on Arcana, History, and Investigation ability checks, as well as advantage to copying scrolls to your spellbook, and scroll and potion crafting costs and times are half. This is a more skill-based wizard. If you were looking for one that's going to do a lot of utility things outside of combat, this is a good choice. The Shock Arcanist gives you Arcane Warfare, which is extremely strong. This means whenever you're casting spells from the war list, these are spells that have the tag war list, they count as being 1 slot higher than they actually are. And these are Burning Hands, Magic Missile, Thunderwave, Acid Arrow, Scorching Ray, Flaming Sphere, Fireball, and Lightning Bolt. For example, this means if you go to use level 1 Magic Missile, instead of shooting 3 Magic Missiles, it's going to shoot 4, and at level 2, it's going to shoot 5. So this is an extremely strong class, and I highly recommend it if you're playing a wizard that's going to be dealing damage primarily. It absolutely kicks butt. And lastly, we come to feats. These are unlocked at level 4, and Solasta features basically its own original feats besides a couple that you'll recognize, so we'll go through those now. First up is Acute Senses. This makes it so you cannot be surprised and you always wake up immediately if your camp is attacked while you sleep. This has happened to me a lot during my playthrough. Basically, anytime you travel anywhere, this happens to you at least once, maybe sometimes twice, depending on how far you go. And it can be a pain in the butt if your character is sleeping or several of your characters are sleeping while you're under attack. So this is great. You also don't get surprised, so you don't lose a round before you can attack. Armor Master straight up gives you 1 extra armor class to the armor you're wearing, no matter what type of armor it is. The next 6 feats are basically creeds to certain deities within the game, and they're going to increase one of your abilities by 1, and it's also going to make it so you're proficient in saving throws with that ability. Keep in mind that classes are already proficient in 2 of these, so you want to make sure that you don't pick ones that you already have proficiency in those saving throws. The Enduring Body feat increases your constitution by 1 to a max of 20 and increases the hit points you gain by +1 each time you gain a level. Up next is Flawless Concentration, which might be my favorite feat so far out of the ones I've seen. It basically allows you to maintain concentration and not have to make a saving throw constitution check if you take less than 10 damage. And if you do take more than 10 damage, you have advantage on your saving throw. So this means if you're going to be maintaining concentration like on a Cleric or maybe a Wizard or even a Paladin, it's not going to be nearly as tough to do, and you're going to be able to do it a lot more easily. Focus Sleeper allows you to increase your constitution by 1 to a max of 20, and it makes it so you only need to sleep 4 hours a night to be rested. And it's only compatible with some of the races, not all of them. The one that's left out there is Elf, and I'm pretty sure this is because it has a similar function with its trance ability. Hard to Kill makes it so you have advantage on death saving throws. This works much like the way it does in BG3, where if you're down on the ground, you have to roll a saving throw 3 times before you get up, and if you fail 3 times, then you die, etc. This is going to give you advantage, which means if you get downed, you're going to be able to get up much more easily. And when you do get up, you're going to gain health, and sometimes if you critically roll, you're going to gain a lot more health. Hauler isn't a terrible feat. You cannot carry as much as you think in Solasta without becoming encumbered a little bit. Encumbrance reduces your movement, which isn't good because you need to get to enemies in order to attack them. But it gives you +1 strength and increases your carrying capacity by 40 pounds, which is quite a bit. So if you are having trouble or you wish you could carry more, this is not a bad one to take. The Lockbreaker feat is absolutely outstanding on like a rogue character, someone who's going to be picking locks often. This means you gain proficiency with Thieves' Tools, or if you already have proficiency, you double that. And you also have advantage when using Thieves' Tools to pick locks. This means you're basically going to be able to pick locks so easily. You should absolutely consider taking this on your rogue. You progress through the game, maybe not at the beginning because you shouldn't have too much difficulty there, but as locks get harder and harder, this is going to be absolutely outstanding. The Should Not Be Displayed feat, I don't know if this is a hidden feat or they just haven't added it specifically yet. I have no idea what this one is. The Manipulator feat allows you to double your proficiency when using Deception, Persuasion, and Intimidation, so this would be good on a high charisma character like a Paladin, for example, in order to get those dialogue outcomes that you want. The Master Alchemist feat allows you to identify any potion you pick up, which is great because you do pick up some identified ones. That does happen. And it makes it so you only need half the normal time to craft a potion, and your proficiency bonus is doubled when making the roll to determine whether you're crafting progress. So this is going to speed up potion production, essentially. Master Enchanter is very similar to Master Alchemist, only with enchanting items. It's going to make the time be in half, and it's going to increase your proficiency bonus by double when you're trying to determine whether you can progress crafting one or not. Might of the Iron Legion gives you proficiency with long swords, short swords, and heavy armor. So if you're a character who wants to use heavy armor, maybe you're a wizard, or maybe you're some other character that would, like a cleric that would really like heavy armor, but you didn't pick the life class, you can get it this way as well as some good proficiencies. This is a very, very strong feat. The Potent Cantrip feat is interesting because it makes it so a target cannot dodge damage completely from one of your cantrips that targets an ability check. So instead of when they save, they're going to take at least half the damage, which is great. However, the trade-off here is that it won't do any other effect. So if it does something like makes it so they can't heal, or maybe it knocks them prone or whatever, these things aren't going to happen anymore, but you won't constantly deal damage as long as it's targeting a saving throw. Robust gives you an extra constitution up to a max of 20, and it makes it so when you use a hit die to regain hit points, you roll twice and take the higher value. So this is maybe good for a cleric, or maybe it's good for a fighter, someone who's going to be using like Second Wind or maybe Cure Wounds. It's going to give you advantage on that roll, which is excellent. And the last feat is Sylvan Archer. This increases your dexterity by 1 and makes it so you ignore 1/2 and 3/4 cover when shooting with a bow. Cover in this game gives you armor class. So I think 3/4 cover gives you 5 armor class and 1/2 gives you 2. So you're basically going to wipe out that armor class when people are in cover. So if you're using a bow at all, this is a must-have feat. So that wraps up our video on races, classes, subclasses, and feats for Solasta Crown of the Magister. Really enjoying this game so far. I've been playing it over on Twitch. I just can't believe this game was made by 17 people, and we simply just cannot have enough D&D games. The more D&D games are, the more good D&D games there's going to be. And Solasta right now has a 91% on Steam, so clearly people are really digging this game. So if you want to help support it or you're looking for a good D&D game to play, make sure you check that out. It's $30 on Steam right now. I think that price is going to go up over time. We're also working on the Solasta Wiki as fast as we can. We didn't get codes until a few days ago, so we're a little bit behind, but we're going to be putting in night and day trying to get that thing caught up as fast as we can.